This year, we are celebrating Rothberg's 50th anniversary. So what better way to highlight CFHU's community of talented women and men? We hope you enjoy this first one, and please stay tuned for others in the series. Our panelists will speak for approximately 30 minutes, and then we will open it up to questions. You can either type your question in the chat or raise your hand and we'll call on you. I'd like to first introduce our moderator, Randi Druzin. Randi is an author and journalist based in Toronto, Canada. She has worked at several major media outlets, including the National Post and the CBC, and has written for dozens of publications, including the New York Times, Time Magazine, the Globe and Mail, and the Toronto Star. Based first in Europe and then in North America, Randi has covered events as diverse as former US Secretary of State Madeleine Albright's visit to Prague and the Van Halen reunion tour. That is quite the gamut. As a partner, CEO and CFO of Turner Fleischer Architects, Ellen Bensky contributes on a daily basis to the advancement of architectural technology and virtual design, not only in her firm, but industry-wide through her initiatives and dedication. Passionate for education, Ellen is especially proud of spearheading an internal academy, which provides a comprehensive learning and teaching platform for her studio. Karen Eltis is full professor of law at the Faculty of Law of the University of Ottawa and an affiliate with Princeton CITP, the Center for Information Technology Policy. A past director of the Human Rights Center, Karen specializes in innovation law, privacy, and cybersecurity from a comparative perspective. Fluent in French, English, Hebrew, Spanish, and Romanian, and proficient in German and Italian, Professor Eltis holds law degrees from McGill University, the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, and Columbia Law School. And Laurie May has been in the film business for over 20 years. She's currently the co-founder and co-president of Elevation Pictures, one of the largest independent distribution companies in Canada, with award-winning titles such as The Imitation Game, Room, and Moonlight. She is also an executive producer on the recently released film, The Broken Hearts Gallery. In 2017, Laurie became a member of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences. And I think we have quite the panel of very well-versed women here, and I'm very looking forward to our conversation. So Randi, take it away.
Okay, I'll start by asking Karen a question. Karen, what impact did going to Hebrew University have on your life? And do you feel that it influenced the path you ended up taking in your career?
Thank you so much. And the short answer is absolutely. I want to begin by saying what a tremendous privilege it is to be amongst you and to thank the organizers. And it's a pleasure to see so many familiar names. The time I spent at Hebrew University, which was in fact 2 years, 1 year on exchange and 1 year for my LLM, were life-changing and probably, aside from the times that my kids were born, the most meaningful years of my life. I would not have been an academic had it not been for my time in Israel, for my clerkship, when in very traditional fashion, I was told, wait, you're not going to do another degree, you're going to just do law school and that's it, as if law school weren't enough. The level is superb. And the opportunities that Hebrew University opened in terms of the professors that I had, including at Rothberg, Ehud Sprinjak, Zichrono Livracha, whose political science class opened incredible horizons, law classes ranging from Ruth Gavizin's course, which I now still cite in my lectures, to Jewish law, incredible perspectives that I would not have had and shape my research, my work. And finally, I'll end on this. I'm now sort of came full circle in being affiliated with the Fetterman Cybersecurity Center at the Hebrew University, where I have the joy of at least coming to Jerusalem via Zoom a few times this year.
And so did you find that studying and learning about law in Israel was relevant when you started learning and studying about law in Canada?
Extremely relevant, and this may be little known, but or maybe widely known for the Quebec lawyers, but Israel's system is actually a hybrid system, very similar to Quebec's and very similar to Canada's in an unexpected way. The Israel legal system is sort of a combination of the inherited common law from the British Mandate, civil law, similar to what we here do in Quebec civil law, because of many of the judges were trained in the Swiss system and in other continental systems, and a bit of Ottoman, and of course, some Jewish law. And so there were incredible parallels to be learned. The Israeli jurists at Hebrew University are above. I do internet law, cybersecurity law. We were talking about genetic discrimination at a conference in 2007, where it was really not heard of. So the jurists there are ahead of their time and are dealing with issues in cybersecurity, startups, as you know, that we are only beginning to see, artificial intelligence, cloud technology, all these questions were being dealt with many, many, many years ago. So absolutely relevant.
Okay. And Ellen, I was wondering if you could tell me about some of the challenges you faced in getting to the top of your field, and if you feel that women starting now are facing fewer or different challenges than you did.
Sure. My field is architecture, and in the AEC industry, it is not common that there are females in leadership roles in studios. And so for me, I had a double challenge because I'm not an architect and I'm a female. So rising up in my studio to a partner level and to the CEO level took a lot of hard work and a lot of determination and a lot of confidence in myself and my ideas and my abilities to continue to push, even when I was feeling pushed back. And I would say that in line with the first question that Karen answered, I think, you know, taking the leap and going to Israel for the one-year program as part of my university studies. I had never been anywhere outside of the States where I grew up, and being in that environment and learning how to cope and deal in a new place definitely impacted my desire and ability to take chances in the balance of my life, which I think absolutely influenced my career.
So you mentioned that you did push when people were pushing back at you. Can you give me some examples, like some concrete examples of the resistance you met along the way?
Very definitively being told that I would never reach partner level, and that option wasn't going to be available to me. And so I just continued to do what I knew I needed to do to prove to all of the men that were in the roles in the studio that I deserved a spot at the table.
And do you feel that women now coming into your profession are dealing with similar challenges, or perhaps has the climate changed and the field is more open to having women there?
I think the climate's changing. I'm still often the only woman in the room when I get together with other CEOs in the industry, but I feel it's changing. My own studio is absolutely changing. The opportunities are there for sure. I think women these days are facing different challenges in terms of raising a family and working and pursuing advanced careers than I did when I came up.
Okay. Laurie, I'll get to you now. Have you encountered sexism in the workplace? And if so, what can you tell us about that and how you adjusted or coped with it?
I mean, I work in the entertainment industry, so like the Me Too movement sort of started by people in the entertainment industry raising their voices. Obviously, it impacts every industry, unfortunately, from gymnasts to bankers to whatever. But the entertainment industry, like, you know, it's almost like Scarface. First you get the money, then you get the power, then you get the girls. So there's a lot of producers who are enticed into the industry to sort of, you know, be able to do casting sessions, so to speak. So there's a lot of male traditional but it is a creative industry that attracts a lot of smart people. So, you know, I had a law degree, so I sort of felt like it placed me at an executive seat at the table sort of early on. That gave me a little bit of an edge, but I still sort of always encountered, you know, I was on the Lionsgate board for 6 years, and I was the only woman of 12 women, and there was some older men on the board who'd say things to me like, I could really use a coffee, and I just had to learn to say like, me too, let's get someone to get us one, or you know, where's this lunch from? I'm like, I don't know, I didn't order lunch. Or nice dress, and I would just say nice tie. So I just had to learn to sort of stand my ground. And you know, once or twice, I was once at a business dinner with a very senior studio executive that I was trying to do a deal for my company. And he literally said, I'm staying at the Four Seasons, and put his key on the table. And I said, oh my God, I can't believe you just did that to me. That's so terrible. I thought we were having a business meeting. He was mortified because I just called it out. So I think you just have to, you know, I've been a mentor for women in film and television. And I just, you know, I do have mentors, and I mentor, and I think that that's important, and just to teach young women in the industry to rely on their strengths and their passion and do hard work and demand to be compensated for that work. We just did employee reviews, and our CFO, who's a very seasoned, makes less than some other people in the industry in our company, because she started at a lower level, and she literally said like, I feel responsible for the finances of the company, so I don't want to ask for too much. And I'm also sort of a woman, so I don't want to like overstate my value, but the time has come, like I really just, and she's getting a big jump. And I've been advocating her for a while and pushing her for a while. She's supposed to have had the CFO title for a while. She's insisted on being VP finance. I'm like, why? You're acting as a CFO. So I really try to mentor women to stand for themselves and have that passion and that drive. But I mean, the glass ceiling is not broken, it's cracking, but it needs some work.
That's very interesting. The subject of mentorship is very interesting to me. So I'll ask the other panelists about that as well. Karen, do you find yourself, or are you interested in being a mentor to young women entering the legal field?
Yeah, absolutely. And I really want to echo what Laurie said. I don't know who this quote is attributable to, but believe you belong, right, as a woman is extremely important. Finding mentors, building relationships. And we at the Faculty of Law are launching, in fact, I was responsible for this right before the pandemic, an initiative for mentoring women, and particularly mentoring women who are interested in technology, because that's obviously extremely growing and extremely important. And women, to a certain extent, are a bit reticent. And there was a piece in the Globe and Mail also today about women executives and how much ground we still have to cover. So we launched this initiative, which we were hoping to have events similar to those at Columbia Law School, where I went with, which Ruth Bader Ginsburg had launched an initiative for women in the law, where there are dinners and events where junior women can interact with senior women and senior men and build relationships. I've had wonderful mentors who were all men, but who really allowed me to move forward through their mentorship. So I think if you open yourself, as Estee Lauder said, people will walk into your life, and that's really what we're trying to facilitate.
Okay, and what about you, Ellen, in terms of mentorship? Have you been interacting with or guiding young women entering your field?
Absolutely. I believe very strongly in mentorship. And when I was coming up in my career, it was really hard to find a woman to mentor me. So most of my mentors were men. And now I mentor a number of young women who are rising up in their careers in my industry. And I think it's really important to share my lessons learned through my journey and help others reach where they want to go. And one of my big focuses is also technology. So finding young women who are passionate about technology and about technology in my industry and helping them achieve more in their careers is really important to me, as well as providing that support for the people in my own studio and ensuring that women have the same chances as men and the same opportunities. And to your point, Laurie, to make sure that we're always looking across the pay scale and make sure that there's equity across the board, no matter what your gender experience is.
Okay, and one thing like I've noticed in my own experience working in a newsroom is that the people coming out of journalism school, the males and females, I've noticed a difference in terms of the attitude of journalism graduates who are male and journalism graduates who are female just starting their careers. I'm wondering, have any of you noticed similar or any differences in attitude between males and females just starting out? I guess
if you read the book Lean In, which I love that book so much, yeah. She relies on Sheryl Sandberg, and she relies on sort of Stanford research. She got a little bit of slack for it not being relatable to all socioeconomic classes, as she was writing from her experience. But there's stats that say like men will apply for a job if they're like 50% qualified, but women will only apply for a job if they're 125% qualified. Men sort of, by their upbringing or society or whatever, will jump right in and think they can do anything. And women want to, I'll take 5 more directors courses before I try to join this board. So, I think it's really important obviously you want to get educated and get experience, but it's also important to just jump right in and volunteer to be on a board. And if you're not great with numbers, then, figure it out and get yourself on the audit committee. So, that's Phyllis Yaffe, who was my mentor, and she was ran Alliance Films. That's exactly what she did. She just got good at what people would assume she wouldn't be good at, and sort of charted her own path. And I think that's really a great model. It has been for me.
And Karen, what about in your field? Have you noticed a difference between men and women starting out in terms of their attitude?
I have to say in law, in the practice of law, there's a phenomenon which I think it's the New York Times Magazine called the Dropout Revolution, which is something that refers to it starting off with the majority of law students and first year, second year associates being women. And then it's slowly dwindling. And that's something that is important to address in private practice. I spent a good amount of my time in private practice, which I loved. And I think there are tremendous opportunities for women. And it just needs to be addressed in light of the various challenges that women face along the road. In terms of carving your own path, I really want to echo what Laurie said, because I think it's crucial that there be a niche. Very often I see some sort of hesitation because certain areas are deemed more male and female, and that's just not the case. And it's a wonderful idea to kind of see what path you can carve out for yourself, where you can bring added value and have leadership there. And I think with the pandemic, strangely enough, there are opportunities for flexibility that can perhaps help us with that phenomenon that I was mentioning, and allow women, when they need it, to have greater flexibility without being marginalized.
I do recall reading an article, I can't remember how long ago, about the 7 sister law firms, the big firms, and how there's relatively few women in executive roles in those firms. Do you feel that's changing, or is that still the case?
I think there's progress. I think that especially now, where we're leaning towards, to borrow that term, a more hybrid model, there will be even greater progress. I think there's a recognition, if there can be some silver lining coming out of this pandemic, is there's a recognition that we can do things differently, and we can do things better, and we can do things in a more agile fashion, and we can sort of harness technology to help us overcome certain obstacles. That's not to say that that we should stay where we are now in terms of being exclusively online, not at all, but that we can harness technology where needed to be more inclusive. So hopefully it's changed, and hopefully it will be changing even more if we're smart about how we use tech.
And do you feel that an evolution in technology would be advantageous for women in the field? And I'd like to ask all of you this question as well, but I guess Karen, you can start.
I'll just quickly say technology is neutral. It's only as good as the humans that operate it. Right. And so it's really important that women be at the table at this juncture of technology, to ensure that it's used in order to propel us, and that it's more inclusive for all of us, rather than marginalizing. It's in our hands, and now is a critical juncture.
Laurie, and what do you feel about the intersection of technology and women's progress in the workplace? Do you see one? Oh, I can't hear Laurie. Can't hear you. Oops.
We'll ask Ellen in the meantime.
Ellen?
Oh, no.
On behalf and Laurie's behalf.
I think that technology and women in the workplace is a really interesting topic that I experience a lot of in my studio right now. Is women who have a year and a half of maternity leave and then come back into a role. Because we're such a technology-based studio, you can come back and everything can have changed. Mm-hmm. And so I see a lot of women who are, because of this extended leave, who are opting not to come back. I think it's much harder to come back and find your footing and find your place and catch up on what you missed, because technology is changing so fast, that I think there's got to be a lot more support put into making sure that women's re-entry into the workplace at the same level and to help them continue to thrive is something that I know I take very seriously as an employer, to support women to making sure that they can come back and that they can get re-educated and increase their skills to the technology that they may have missed when they were gone.
So what I'm getting from you, correct me if I'm wrong, is that technology can help, but it can also hurt women progressing in the workplace. Is that correct?
Absolutely, because the pace of change is so fast. If you're gone 6 months, something could be drastically different. So if you're gone 18 months, there could be something totally new that you have no idea about. And that can be a scary place for women to be. And it might be limiting choices that women are making in terms of going back to careers.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Sorry, I turned off the camera on purpose because sometimes that eats the Wi-Fi. I'm going to approach the question from a different angle, which is this. I mean, in my industry, for example, theaters closed. So that was a hit to my business, but people are consuming content at home on Amazon, Netflix, on demand, iTunes, whatever demand service you have, Rogers Bell. So we had to learn to pivot. And a lot of businesses during the pandemic had to learn to pivot. And I think that's really important, to be nimble and be entrepreneurial and not be afraid to face change. I personally I don't love change, but I think it's really important. And I'm actually in a book club I've been in for 17 years, and we read like fiction, nonfiction, fiction, nonfiction. So right now we're reading Atomic Habits by Neil Clear, which I'm loving because it's teaching you how to, build good habits and break bad habits, and habit stacking good habits. And I read business books, and I always am trying to better myself, wellness and health, and take care of myself, but also teach myself so that I can continue to be a value add to my business, both for my own personal growth and for my staff's personal growth and for the company's growth. So I think it's really important not to get stuck, but to keep learning.
And do you feel like technology could be helpful for women in terms of making inroads in your industry?
I mean, what I started to say when I got cut off was that, my daughter's 19, she's studying economics, but a lot of women are being encouraged to get into STEM and get into those fields, because certainly that's where there'll be a lot of jobs in the future, right? There are a lot of things that are getting automated with AI, but there's still, as someone said, the human touch. There was actually a software that could, how your email now, if somebody says you here's something and your email knows to say thanks, got it, whatever, like it can sort of, so there was a software created that could read scripts and predict the box office, how marketable it would be. And of course that's ridiculous. It doesn't work, right? There's a human element. Like I read 50 scripts a week and edit it down to however many we're interested in. And there's still I'm not always right, but there's still a personal element. So of course people have to stay up to date on technology in their field. For me, it's like, I could watch a movie on my watch. But again, it's just in whatever aspect, keeping yourself up to date on the latest trends, the latest technology, whatever's happening in your industry, so that you can be a trailblazer.
Okay, and then I guess the last question I'd like to ask, and there may be follow-up questions, I can't promise. What advice would each of you give to young women just starting out in your field? So I guess we'll start with Ellen. Can you tell me, if I was, just coming out of university and I wanted to get started in your field, what would you say to me? What would be like, here's 5 or 6 things you need to know before you start?
how to use your voice, how to speak up for yourself, how to be heard, how to ask questions and not to be afraid to ask questions, not to be afraid to not know something, to seek out people in the industry and around you who can mentor you, help you, answer your questions, guide you, and be open to thinking about things differently. I think that it gets back to me to technology and change and what we've learned for sure this year about being able to pivot really quickly, not getting too fixed on what you think your path is, because there could be a path slightly towards the left that's actually a better path. And to be open to looking and learning and choosing, and not to feel like when you graduate, what you thought you were going to do is what you actually have to do.
So, can I add something to that? That actually leads really well to me answering what was the first question, which I've told both of my kids. You don't need to know what you're going to do when you're 15. You know, there's a lot of pressure on kids in high school with a career counselor. Like, well, if you're going to take this, then you better take this. And if you want to be an architect, you better take 2 sciences. And like, you know, both of my kids said to me when they were 15, like, I don't know what I want to do. And I said, good for you. You shouldn't know what you want. Because I went to Hebrew University, which was an amazing experience that opened me up to a big world and lifelong friends. I was there when the first Intifada broke out, and I was taking media in the Middle East. And the professor was teaching us, as Army helicopters were hovering over the school, about how the media can manipulate, like talk about ahead of their times, that the media will go there and they will throw a rock and get somebody to throw a tear gas back and record that and twist the story. So I got interested in journalism, came back and got a job at CTV television network. And then while I was there, was helping the legal department. And Gary Mavera and John Cassidy, who was the head of CTV at the time, said to me, don't go to journalism school. You feel like you're like going to be a fit for the law, go to law school. I went to U of T law. I took communications law, thinking I'm going to go like into broadcasting. I took entertainment law for fun and liked the power of film as a message even more than the power of the media. So I pivoted into my career, and I love being in the film industry and using my power in the film industry to get important stories told. So I think it's very important to be able to not just pivot in your career, but like follow your path. And you know, if I thought I wanted to be one thing and then journalism and then law, like you can shift. And I think that's important to find something that you love and you're passionate about, because sometimes it's not the first thing you think of.
It's funny you should say that, because my goal was to start in law and I ended up pivoting into journalism because I felt that was something I was more passionate about. It's interesting. Karen, what about you? What advice would you have to young women starting out in law?
I think the learn to pivot really resonates. And I was in Israel during the second Intifada, and I, as I said, circling back to the first question, would never thought about an academic career when I was in law school until my clerkship and my time at Hebrew U. So you can switch. I've already had about 5 different careers in law in terms of private practice, NGO, government service, and academia. And there's still hopefully more to come. So I echo learn to pivot. Again, believe you belong, really important. And find mentors and build relationships. Don't be afraid to ask and to offer. Worst that can happen is you're in the same place. So that are really important qualities that I saw nurtured during my time at Hebrew U.
Okay, actually, I do have one last question based on some of the answers. It got me thinking, do you feel that companies and organizations should make an effort to identify women who can be mentors for young women coming up? Do you think that's an initiative that's worth undertaking? Ellen?
Absolutely. I think that whatever companies can do to support the growth and development of all their staff, but of women, to find other women to help and develop that capability to be a mentor and to help is essential. I believe in knowledge sharing and learning, whether you're mentoring, whether you're guiding, whether you're coaching, to be able to create an environment where people can help each other, and that the women feel supported and have support all around is a huge value of mine.
And Laurie, do you feel that women in your field would be receptive to that kind of mentoring?
I mean, Women in Film and Television, WIFTE, it's called Women in Film and Television Toronto. There's divisions and chapters all over the world. And the mentorship, I was a recipient of an award from them for mentorship, because I take it very seriously to try to nurture young women in the industry. There's lots of, there's a big push now for BIPOC voices, Indigenous voices, women's voices, to try to have, even the Academy is trying to be more diverse in terms of, it was Oscars so white. And then if you looked at this year's Oscars, there was a broad range of recipients. So you can see that change can happen if people just take the time to try to hear more than one voice. And one other advice that I think is very important for anybody, but I always give young women coming in, is like, I talk all the time to people who want to be in the industry, whether they're referred to me or a friend or somebody's. And I always ask, the first question is, I love the film industry, I want to be in the film industry. My first question is always, what's the last movie you saw? And, people that really, it's like, I saw Minari and I loved it, that grandma. And it's not that they have, but, some people go, It's like, okay, if you love, do your research. If you're coming to meet me and I'm the head of Elevation, find out how I got there, find out what Elevation's doing, read Variety, take the time to get yourself educated so we can have a meaningful conversation. And I can see that you're really interested and engaged. I actually had one kid come in and he mentioned a film that wasn't in theaters. And I said, where did you see that? And he said, on my computer last night. And I said, you just told me in the first 30 seconds of an interview that you pirated a film. Let's start again. So, right. So it's whatever field you're interested in, take the time. If you can, ask somebody for 20 minutes of their time, use that 20 minutes wisely and ask them questions and learn from it, and follow up politely with a thank you, so that when you're looking for a job, they'll think of you and be like, that person was great.
Yeah. So what I'm taking away from that is, as a mentor, you're more receptive to people who make a real effort to know you, to know the company, to know the industry.
Yeah. You want to see that passion and drive.
Yeah.
And, and the last thing I want to say also, women, there have been lots of labels attached to women throughout the years, and you got to just break through those labels. I had one boss way back at Lionsgate when I worked there who used to start a sentence with, what your problem is? And I'd say to him, why don't we I don't want to tell you what your problem is. Why don't you not tell me what my problem is? Let's just talk. So I've had to learn to sort of shut it. I'm in a male executive team, and I was talking to another woman, and somebody on the team called it gossip. And I just said, okay, no, when women talk, it's gossip. When men talk, it's a conversation. Stop. Yeah. So I just nail it right in the head every time. Yeah. That's easier for me as an executive than as somebody coming up the ranks, but just don't get beaten down by that. Just push through it.
And Karen, would you or other women be receptive to being mentors to young women coming into law?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is necessary. I've benefited from mentorship when I was coming up. As I said, like the co-panelists, it was mostly male mentors, but who were wonderful, and some female mentors. And we have an initiative now, and I think it's absolutely crucial. In fact, there's a wonderful initiative in technology led by an Israeli woman who won a prize given by Microsoft for leadership and mentorship by women in technology. And I think just to piggyback on Laurie's last comment, change can come from within, and you do have to get to a position where you have the ability to speak out more often. And I, at this point, often try to say when I need to leave at some point because of family obligations, because of children, I am explicit about it because I can be, in order to try to pave the way for those who will come after me, so that they are not embarrassed or they are able to speak out about the juggling act that women are sort of forced to bury. And the last thing I'll say just on this point is that during my time at Hebrew University, I noticed a difference, and society was very receptive. It was not taboo to mention one's family obligations. And in private practice, female attorneys would say, well, I'm going to pick up my kids and I'll be back. Whereas in North American culture, certainly about 20 years ago, one would not mention that at a junior level. And I think that's changing. And that is also part of mentorship, the language that we use in empowering women to recognize and to speak out in a gentle way, if they choose to, about their obligations and about their constraints, rather than having it remain a taboo.
Well, it's very interesting. And as you were speaking, I was thinking 20 years ago, 30 years ago, that wouldn't have been the case. You wouldn't have a woman say, I'm sorry, I have to leave and pick up my child at daycare. I can't go to Discoveries on this particular day at this particular time, right? So there has been change, I think so as well.
And one other thing also I was thinking is it's also, you can lead by action, not just talk. And so even, you know, unfortunately with what's happening right now in Israel, which is devastating everybody. And I say to people, like, don't just talk to, I saw girlfriends outside, safety distance for an outdoor drink. And I said, don't just talk about it, like do something, right? So a few years ago when I was running Maple Pictures, my previous company, and there was a petition signed by Jane Fonda and a bunch of people because TIFF was spotlighting Tel Aviv, and some uneducated people that were saying, oh, Tel Aviv was built on a Palestinian town that was taken over. And so they're boycotting that. And I could have signed a petition on the other side. And I said, well, that's ridiculous. And I said to my acquisition team, find an Israeli film to buy. And so we bought Lebanon, which had won the Golden Bear at the Berlin Film Festival. And it's a beautiful film that I'm proud of. So it's not just do nothing and talk to my friends about it or sign a petition, which is better than nothing, but not really. It's like act, do something, use your voice, make a difference.
Lead by example.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think do we have time for questions now? Is this where we're at the point we're at now?
Yes, exactly.
I can't really see the questions. I see one comment, which is great.
I have one question here, just to let everybody know if they have a question, they can type it in the chat. But I do have someone who asked a question. It's interesting because Laurie mentioned being part of a women's group in your industry. And someone was wondering if any of you are part of any other greater network of women, like outside of your industry, but women's network or women's business network who meet regularly.
I'm not, but it's a good idea. I'm sure they exist. And if
they absolutely exist.
Should. Like I know RBC has an initiative for women in business. I did speak at a CIBC panel for International Women's Day that had a lot of female lawyers in the panel. So there are events around International Women's Day. And I know, you know, in the legal profession, I know there are groups of legal women and my business women in film and television, but it would be a good idea to have a cross-sectional group of female executives that could mentor, frankly, help each other and mentor up and coming women. It's a good idea. Maybe Hebrew, you could do something.
Above and beyond everything else. I do actually
good idea.
We have Manette. Oh, Manette, that is so funny. I was just going to say we have Manette on the call, who is actually the president of CFHU, and I know that she belongs to some of these networks. So I was going to ask you about them. I don't know, they're not just based in Montreal, right? They're
no. So it's funny because I put up my hand to answer. So thank you. It's a great session, and thank you everybody for being on it. I really am enjoying it. I do belong to an organization called the International Women's Forum. It's an organization that is in 35 countries, 7,000 women, and there are top women in all the fields. So the beauty of that is it's not only in the field you're in, but it's in all the fields. So you're not sitting only with your own industry, you're sitting with women of like minds. And our mandate is really a woman's mandate to be a sisterhood and to move the women's agenda. So it's not to look at poverty necessarily, but it's to look at moving the women's agenda so that people are in position to move up. It's a great organization. It's one that you have to be asked to join, not one that you can just join, but it's a great one. And I'd be glad to talk to all of you about it, because there is a Canadian chapter of it, Canadian Forum, and there's a chapter in Toronto, Montreal, and so on and so forth. I sat on the international board for 6 years, and I have friends from all over the world because of it. And we talk to each other. It's a safe space to have the discussions that you need to have on levels that are really high. And I will send the link to you so that you could send it out to people and they could see. And if anybody was interested, I'd be more than glad to do that. And the idea from the Hebrew U, it's interesting because we're now in the next 2 months looking at what's philanthropy all about, what's volunteerism all about, how's it going to change in the future. So you're right on target in looking and thinking about maybe we could start something like this, because I think that it would be a great thing to go forward. So thank you for that.
Okay, thank you.
My pleasure.
I was just flipping through LinkedIn looking because, you know, LinkedIn can be, at first I was like, this is not that, it just felt like Facebook for business, but there actually are some interesting, like I'm a part of some entertainment lawyer groups, and just flipping at it right now, I found there's a bunch of women's groups that you could join that probably have interesting forums and things. So that might be a good way for people to find different networks like that as well.
Mm-hmm. There's an initiative, the last in-conference person I went to and before the pandemic, which is kind of sad, but it was in Ottawa, but it was the Ottawa leg of a Stanford conference for women in technology. The exact name escapes me, but I could certainly look it up. And they have legs of it all over the world. And I was to my knowledge, at least the panelist, one of two lawyers, but it was fascinating to meet women who are in computer science, women who are in engineering, and it allowed for a cross-sectional discussion. It also allowed for mentoring, because during what was then known as coffee breaks, students came up to me who were in different disciplines. And so in my area, law is pretty much, or used to be, tunnel. And now what we need is translators, people who are able to work across disciplines. And that's rare. And so that was a model that is interesting to perhaps echo with Hebrew U and with other networks.
Interesting. Ellen, do you know of any networking groups, or could you? No?
I belonged to the, Women's Executive Network in Toronto for a number of years early on in my career. Mm-hmm. But ever since then, all of the groups that I've belonged as I've grown my company have been in my industry. Mm-hmm. and focused, and I've been focused on that. But I do see, I know there are a few industry women's groups that are in existence out there, but I personally haven't joined any of them. But it is.
I just found the one that I was looking for, that I was interested in. Women of Influence is a good one. They're on they actually interviewed me, but they basically interview different women in different industries. You can follow them on LinkedIn. You don't have to formally join, but they just have a group of different women paving the way in different industries with different advice. So it's called Women of Influence. That's a good one to follow.
Okay. Are there any more questions, or Ms. Davis?
I don't see any raised hands. I don't see anything in the chat.
We've covered it all.
I think we covered it all. I want to say thank you so much to all of you for your time and for your thoughtful answers. And when we ask questions and it just leads in different directions, I think we get so much more than we thought we would. So just from all of us at CFHU, thank you so much for coming to this panel. And
send your kids to Hebrew U. Was great.
Sorry?
Send your kids. Everybody send their kids to Hebrew U.
Yes, exactly.
No, it's true. Because I went to Hebrew U, actually, my daughter went to Neuchâtel Junior College because she said to me, Mommy, all you talk about is the year you did abroad and how much it changed your life and how much it opened you up to the world. And it's true, when you're 18 years old and you're sort of going through the motions of everybody, the party and the this and the that, and But if you take yourself out of that and go to another country, particularly Israel, and in my case, and learn that culture and see the world as your oyster, it really just opens you up to seeing more than just your little tunnel vision of where you grow up, and see that there's lots of opportunities out there, and there's different people out there and challenges, and you learn to care about more than your own little world.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Thank you for that.
We're
gonna quote that.
Yes, and I know Laurie will be our next ambassador. And on that note, I also just want to mention, I mean, I know that I mentioned that it's Rothberg's 50th anniversary, but we do, through CFHU, we do actually have scholarships for kids who want to attend. If it's a summer semester, if it's a full year, if it's graduate, undergraduate, we do have scholarships. So please spread the word. You know, the more kids who we can help attend, the better. Exchange programs, scholarships. So, you know, please, just so that everybody's aware of it. And thank you all again. This was recorded. There will be a recording of it. If anybody would like it, please just send me an email. My email was with the Zoom confirmation that you received. And as soon as it's up on our website, I can send you the link. And thank you, everyone, and have a great evening.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.